This is present-day Shanghai, as if it has suddenly returned to the 80s. People are seen using carrying poles, mopeds, and tricycles. After the Communist Party announced that Shanghai's epidemic prevention and control measures had reached a positive milestone, this was a glimmer of freedom given to the people who had been under a tight lockdown for more than a month. People of 6 districts are now allowed to go shopping for a very short period of time, but aren't allowed to use normal means of transportation such as buses or cars.
These cards are dated May 1st to May 5th. Each household can only take one card. We're now mixing up these cards. After the shuffling, one can draw a card, and whichever day you get is the day for you to go shopping. This is used for shopping only. Each household can only go out once every 5 days. After you have been to the mall for shopping, this card will be taken back. If you are unhappy with the card you get, you're free to exchange with each other. Be back before 6 o'clock and no driving.
On May 1st, Shanghai officials declared that 6 districts and 5 towns in Pudongnu area have basically achieved zero social transmission of COVID-19. What is basically zero social transmission? This is a term coined by the Chinese Communist government that no one can understand, but it is a term coined to declare a victory. After all, the Shanghai officials don't yet have the courage to claim that the virus is actually zero in the city. Shanghai officials have taken the zero COVID policy to be a success when virtually all people infected or suspected to be infected have been taken to the cabin hospital, and there are no more positive cases among the people active in the society. After the announcement of Shanghai's victory, restrictive measures in related districts and towns are being relaxed, and people can go out to buy groceries for a limited time. They, however, have to move very fast. Sometimes it's a long way to get to the grocery store. Look, long lines in this community. In this video, 2 older women are cursing because it takes them 30 minutes to get out of the home to the supermarket, 2.5 hours to wait in line, and at least 30 minutes to get inside the supermarket to buy food. They don't have enough time to get home by 6 o'clock.
What kind of animal came up with this absurd idea to disqualify people from shopping after the time limit? After leaving home, it takes me 30 minutes to run to the supermarket, and I have to wait in line for 2.5 hours. It takes at least 30 minutes to get inside the supermarket to buy. There isn't enough time to get home.
Other districts in Shanghai are still under strict lockdown. Many people, especially those at the social bottom, are living in hunger, including migrant workers, people with little income, and elderly people with little to fall back on. They are struggling with hunger in the midst of this mega lockdown in Shanghai. In this part of Shanghai, after 30 days of lockdown, the peasant workers finally received some supplies from the government. That is, a bag of cucumbers, and 3 people are asked to share 1 cucumber.
这2个人的0.8到。
26 people are given a total of 2 trays of eggs and 2 bags of rice. Golden Light 7th Brigade has been locked down for a month. All they were given are these eggs and rice. These elderly people asked a truck driver passing by to give them a few fish over the community fence. The cameraman said that when the driver finally agreed to sell the fish, the elderly took out cash and paid. Their hands were shaking with joy. I'm starving to death.
You have no food? What are you going to do? Don't you have food?
Thank you, thank you.
Here's some more.
Thank you, I'm starving to death.
I'm leaving. Just ask when you run out of food.
Some of the elderly people who stay in those welfare senior homes are in very dangerous situations. On the afternoon of May 1st, a video went viral online. It showed that when the Shanghai New Long March home requested a dead body to be taken away, the funeral home staff found that the so-called corpse was still moving, showing signs of life. He immediately called out to the seniors' home staff and uncovered the cloth for her to see. Are you sure this person is dead? Are you sure? The person is still alive. She is moving. She is moving. Alive, see? Don't cover her anymore. What's shocking is that despite the staff checking to see if the person was still alive and the funeral home staff yelling, "Stop covering her," the senior home staff continued to cover the elderly's face while talking with their colleagues as if business was usual.
我看不对劲，怎么没死的了？再早上起来，得商量，怎么办？拿下来呀？怎么办？你这个不道德的，没死叫人家殡仪馆的人车来拉走。
Eventually, they took the elderly person off the funeral home's hearse.
不负责任，真的不负责任。啊。
Later, local media in Shanghai learned from the facility and the Associated District Civil Affairs Bureau that the incident did occur. The 70-year-old female patient had been transferred to the hospital and her vital signs are stable. The scary thing about this incident is that the medical procedures and resuscitation steps that the deceased has undergone must be recorded or appended to the death certificate before they can be officially considered as meeting the criteria for death, before being sent to the hospital, morgue, or funeral home for cremation. In Shanghai, when a live person with obvious vital signs is sent for cremation, it suggests there may be a massive systemic and institutional breakdown behind the scene. Is it possible that many more elderly people have died in this way? Compared to human life, communist officials appear to be more concerned with profiting from the highly centralized distribution of supplies. The epidemic has provided officials with an unprecedented opportunity to implement a completely communist distribution system in a metropolis of 26 million people. That is, the government distributes supplies to every household. Much of the material comes from donations from all over the country. That is to say, the officials have a monopoly on the national support for Shanghai, hence a huge opportunity as well. First, they take care of their higher-ups and those who have power and influence. This is the most important principle for Chinese officials to follow at all times, even in the midst of an epidemic. This video shows residents of a building in Shanghai where top officials reside, receiving a variety of supplies, all for free. What is this? Pickled fish? Bok choy, shrimp. It's not silverfish. Taipei glutinous rice sausage. Balsamic vinegar, so thoughtful. You have everything. There are also fine chicken nuggets, cuttlefish, pork, beef, and fruits. This kind of free food is beyond ordinary people. During the month-long lockdown, even if ordinary residents are spared from starvation, they can't escape from expired food and poor quality food. This is the tendons of pork. Tendons? You try it. This is the worm, okay? Okay, I know. I'll take a picture. It's a worm, okay? Do you see the worm in the lunchbox? They are parasites. We have found another one. Some of the pork in these lunchboxes even had pork tapeworms, a parasite that is extremely harmful to humans after consumption. In the face of a general food shortage, some neighborhoods have decided to give special supplies to the residents. For example, on April 22nd, this neighborhood in Shanghai gave 1,212 households a toilet, one for each family. The residents were baffled by this, as there was a shortage of food and supplies. What is the reason for giving out toilets? The management and distribution of supplies are usually done by the residential committee of the neighborhood, and the supply sites are set up in the local community in general. During the epidemic, residents found that many of their neighborhood committees received supplies from their higher-ups. But, instead of providing them to residents in a timely manner, they tried to hide, hoard, and divert most of the supplies, or quietly divide the supplies amongst themselves. They have become quite savvy, paying attention to details. For example, the tags on the donation boxes have been removed to make it easier to sell them later. After days of starvation, members of this neighborhood can't help but to go out to investigate where the supplies have gone, only to find that a large number of supplies donated by another province haven't been disseminated.
Ouch! Look at all the food hidden inside. No wonder we have no food. Look! Wow! Post them online. What on earth are these officials doing? The food smells bad. I feel like throwing up upon smelling it. What a shame. Look, so many boxes of food.
In the early hours of May 3rd, another neighborhood committee was discovered by residents to be carting away supplies. The residents have reported them to the police. The news of resident committees hiding and diverting supplies is spreading among locals in Shanghai. Gradually, residents of several neighborhoods have started to investigate the committee offices in the middle of the night. The video shows that they broke through the metal door to enter the office and found a lot of supplies hidden in private, many of which had become almost rotten. Villagers have also started to scour around and found a lot of donations from Xinjiang in the village's supplies warehouse. There are a lot of high-grade rice, corn oil, and Xinjiang specialty nuts. These supplies have piled up, and some of them have been secretly dumped by officials because they couldn't handle them in time. Are these foods expired? Made on April 16th with a shelf life of 12 months. This product is fine. Why are you throwing them away? How are they garbage? It's a shame to throw them away. They just won't distribute them to us. What is very strange is that recently fires broke out at different disaster relief supply depots in Shanghai. We have reported that many of China's grain reserves are so corrupt that when the central government wants to audit the grain silos, strange fires will break out that prevent the audits from taking place. Perhaps this is also a lesson learned by the supply management staff in Shanghai. People in Shanghai have to buy food on their own most of the time, except occasionally receiving some donations. They place orders from the shopping apps controlled by officials at various levels. It's quite likely that supplies sold on these platforms come from donations that have been taken by officials. These supplies are sold expensively. Statistics have shown that the price of food purchased from these platforms is already 10 to 15 times higher than in normal times. But that's not the worst of it. Communist officials are trying to monopolize the delivery channels as well, in order to reap even greater benefits. You aren't qualified to deliver. Not everyone can deliver. So, what are your qualifications? My qualification is to tell you that you can't deliver. My qualification tells you what you can do. Do you understand or not? Go home now. Go home. Don't you know how to read? Okay, okay. We will let them unload the goods after reaching an agreement.
What agreement?
You let the delivery man leave first.
Why can't I unload what I bought?
No reason. I don't answer your question.
Who let you stop delivery? You have the right to block deliveries, but you can't explain to the residents what you're doing.
What do you want to do?
I need you to explain clearly.
What do you want to do? It can be argued that the shortage of supplies caused by the lockdown isn't a natural disaster, but is caused by the red system. People in Shanghai have shown the rest of China that in the future, as their respective cities enter lockdowns, an effective solution to hunger is to go directly to the Communist Party offices and collect the stashed food that is rightfully theirs. And no matter what the crisis, no matter how bad the situation gets, the CCP will always declare victory, even on the eve of its imminent collapse.
The meeting pointed out that since the outbreak of the COVID-19 epidemic, China has adhered to making people's lives and health the top priority, stuck to the prevention of both imported cases and domestic viral transmissions, followed the dynamic zero-COVID policy, and adjusted the virus response measures according to the time and situation, thus gaining major strategic achievements in the anti-epidemic battle. Since March, thanks to the concerted efforts of the whole country, China has withstood the most challenging COVID-19 control test since the launch of the anti-epidemic battle in central China's Wuhan city and has secured progress. Practice has proved that our epidemic response policies are determined by the nature and purpose of the party. Our policies can stand the test of history, and our epidemic prevention and control measures are scientific and effective. Since we have won the hard anti-epidemic battle in Wuhan, we will definitely be able to win the ongoing battle against the viral resurgence in Shanghai.